Republics have a shelf life. Republics aren't like monarchies. Monarchies last forever. Genuinely, and I really mean this, monarchy is the most stable form of government humankind has ever known. Having a king or an emperor or whatever it is in charge, and these can last for literally thousands of years. So, I mean, at the moment, King Charles is a direct descendant of Harold Godwinson and William the Conqueror, the two people who were opposing each other at the Battle of Hastings. So, monarchy can last a very, very long time. Republics are naturally more unstable because they unleash the productive and competitive forces of a people, making it so that, oh, the top spot's available, which allows those people who are competitive to start really pushing the boundaries. But that means that someone wins in this game eventually, and republics have a shelf life. And when republics fall, it doesn't mean that the civilization is over or that its power collapses or anything. What it means is that the political system is over, and you transition into something that more resembles a monarchy. The Roman Empire is a great example of this, but there are many others as well. I mean, look at Napoleon with France. There are many others like this, and so the end of the American Republic could well be on the horizon.
Before you watch this, I need to make a point directed at Americans. One of the most ridiculous things I frequently hear is, America isn't a democracy, it's a constitutional republic. First of all, a constitution is not a form of government. North Korea has a constitution. Second of all, even if it was, if you think a piece of paper wields any true power, you're as big a fool as any leftist. Read these definitions of democracy from dictionary.com and even Wikipedia. If the common people are voting, period, then it's a democracy. With this video, it's difficult to make a long list of reasons democracy is wrong without being a little repetitive by accident. Many of the things on this list blend into each other, so just be aware that I tried my best not to be repetitive. Okay, there are a lot of reasons democracy is a crock of shit, so let's get right into it. Democracy is a system built on disagreement. Democrats, meaning those in favor of democracy, believe that disagreement is a good thing. Somehow, it's a good thing to disagree when farming crops or engaging in warfare or trying to run a business or just trying to peacefully coexist in a household, right? Or is disagreement and gridlock only a good thing with politics, somehow? With democracy, you're not simply encouraged to disagree, you have to. At best, that creates a nation of liars, and at its inevitable worst, it creates tyranny. By design, it is meant to be divisive. Democracy thinks disagreement is a good thing, and I don't have the words to articulate how stupid that is. Political parties are divisive by nature. One political party plus one political party equals not united. And you can't have a system that involves commoners voting without having political parties. No matter what system a society uses, at the end of the day, somebody has to make a decision, and there will always be someone who disagrees with that decision. Democracy amplifies this reality by making disagreement part of the system itself. Democracy is not a system of decisiveness, but of intentional indecisiveness. It is not a system of precision, but of intentional procrastination and obstruction. The only way to get anything done is by compelling others to at least take your side for now, and the only way to achieve that is through compromise. If you think that's even remotely a good idea, then let me ask you what 2 plus 2 is. What if you put this question up to a vote? Some people would answer that 2 plus 2 equals 42. Some people would want the answer to be over 9,000, and a small percentage of people would say that the answer is 4. So you compromise, and you decide that the answer is 3,015. And that becomes official policy, and now all people and businesses must abide by that decision or get punished for it. And if you think 2 plus 2 equals anything but 3015, then you're a bigot. When your political system is based on groups deciding things together, where everyone in the group has equal decision-making power, and getting humans to agree on things 100% has always been impossible, then your best available option is compromise. Sometimes you may not have to compromise on the bigger picture, but you will always have to compromise with people in your own group on the little details. But even the bigger picture isn't always safe, because to win elections, your group has to compromise with other groups to have any chance of winning. When Scott Pressler supposedly won Pennsylvania for Republicans in 2024, I saw a lot of debate online over whether or not Republicans should keep this guy within their ranks because he's gay. The way I see it is, that's just how democracy works. You can't win without compromising with people you don't want to coexist with. It's a feature, not a bug. No matter what you stand for, left or right, in democracy, you can't have victory without accepting a little bit of your enemy. If you don't want gays, well, you have to accept them a little bit. If you don't want fascists, well, then you have to accept them a little bit. It doesn't matter what you believe in. Inconsistency is part of the game. It's required. Has this system made any of us more accepting of people who disagree with us or people who want nothing to do with us? Or are we just getting more divided? What was the point of this system again? Democracy is a numbers game. To get greater numbers in your favor, you have to compromise. You know why it's absurd to have a political system built on compromise? Because the truth is absolute. The truth doesn't compromise. 2 plus 2 will always equal 4, whether you like it or not, whether your feelings agree with it or not. If democracy chose what 2 plus 2 equals, it wouldn't come up with the right answer. It would compromise on the answer. You'll end up getting a number like 3015, or hell, maybe even 52,923,687, when the question was simply, what's 2 plus 2? This ultimately leads to one of the main reasons democracy is always doomed to fail. Every wrong decision the leaders of a nation make, that's another step off the right path. If you want your civilization to keep standing, if you want it to be stable, you have to remain on the right path, and not every path is the right path. Pick whatever allegory you want. If every civilization was like a man hiking on a trail, then every bad decision the leaders make is a step off the trail. If every civilization was like a high-rise building under construction, then every bad decision is another floor of that building being constructed with higher risk of toppling or collapsing the building. Look, I'm not saying that any political system never makes bad decisions. What I'm saying is, democracy makes all its decisions via compromise, which will be wrong decisions astronomically more often than correct decisions. No democracy has ever lasted 500 years. That's not bad luck. That's not coincidence. Democracy is doomed to fail by its very nature. I see little to no difference between democracy and communism in how much neither can exist without authoritarianism or propaganda. Democracy is soft communism, and because it is soft communism, it will always require endless propaganda and forced, yes, forced, egalitarianism. What else would you call the Civil Rights Act apart from forced egalitarianism? Truth never needs propaganda to defend itself. It only needs to be available. Only lies need propaganda. Only lies need to be forced. If people need to be endlessly reminded about how amazing democracy is, that alone should lead people to question it. One thing that doesn't even begin to make sense to me about democracy is how people think politicians are in any way compelled to be good people once they're given power through a mere popularity contest. Power and money, the two things all human beings want in abundance, given at the small cost of winning a popularity contest. And most people, average people, believe that handing someone the two things that all humans want at such a low cost turns them into better people? Does the average person believe that that wouldn't attract the worst people? Let's talk about incentive. It is a simple fact of human nature that we care more for things which we have stake in. In other words, if we have no reason to care, then we don't care. As I've said, and will keep saying, democracy is giving people power through a mere popularity contest. How is that not inherently a lightning rod for despicable, dishonest people to try to rule over you? You don't hate your politicians. The problem is the system itself creates politicians. Since politicians share power, they also divide responsibility amongst each other. They share the blame for everything that goes wrong. And with the benefit of multiple political parties, not only do politicians get to share blame, but they also just scapegoat the other party so that they don't have to take blame at all. Politicians have multiple layers of deniability no matter what goes wrong, no matter how much it is their fault. Nearly everyone in our federal government deserved to get fired or imprisoned for the COVID lockdowns, but not a single one of them faced any consequences, even when they broke their own rules. So, for all that democracy chalks itself up to be, its shining feature of holding power accountable is actually what it does the least. Democracy shields politicians from blame more than any other system. Think of physics and the force of impact between two objects. The more the energy of impact is dispersed, the less damage that object suffers. Same thing with politicians. The fault is not your country. The problem is the very nature of democracy. If you were able to acquire power, knowing you'd be held accountable for almost nothing, no matter how badly you fuck things up, then why wouldn't you seize the opportunity? Easy money, easy power, no accountability. The worst that happens to you is that you get voted out. And when does that happen anyway? Democracy is just as egalitarian as communism. One could argue it's even more egalitarian than communism, because it assumes everyone is already equal in every way. Equally responsible, equally good, equally intelligent, equally well-intentioned. Not just responsible, good, intelligent, and well-intentioned, but equally all those things. It doesn't matter how egalitarian you are. We all know not everyone makes responsible choices. We all know not everyone has the best intentions. Even a child can understand these basic facts of reality. So given these obvious realities, why do we pretend that everyone is equal in these regards when it comes to voting? And as for intentions, imagine the most evil person to ever live is running for political office in your country. Evil in every conceivable way. But despite all of their evil, they promise 90 days of paid vacation for all full-time workers. What could you do if people vote for him simply to get those 90 days of paid vacation every year? That's it, one issue. And yes, plenty of voters are open about the fact that they are single-issue voters. Then what? This kind of connects to the problem of compromise, doesn't it? Even with a single candidate, you're probably compromising on a myriad of issues just to get one or two things that you've always wanted. When a politician is elected on certain campaign promises, there's nothing you can do to ensure that they will keep their promise anyway. So they win a popularity contest, they now get paid a large salary, they have all this power. There's no guarantee, there's no way to ensure that they will even keep their promises. So there's that problem too. And you can't hold them accountable for not keeping their promises. And if you could hold them accountable for it, well then why not just implement those policies yourself? We can just go around in circles. Democracy just doesn't make sense. But even if everything else I've said in this section didn't apply, democracy wouldn't make sense if everyone had the same cognitive capabilities and sense of responsibility and intentions, because then there wouldn't be a need for voting in the first place. You would just simply have a leader, and I guess he would be perfect or something because everyone's the same. So no matter which way you slice it, democracy doesn't even make sense. You may try to counter most of the points I've made regarding democracy by saying, well, you just have to limit who gets to vote in the first place. Problem solved. Yeah, the founding fathers of America tried that, and look where we are now. Once again, you have ignored human nature. When votes are how people acquire power and keep power, when that's your system, then those who crave power are going to do whatever it takes to get those votes. It doesn't matter how you start your democracy, it will degrade over time, period. You can start off with some rule like, only land-owning, married Christian men above the age of 35 with 3 children can vote. You can have a rule like that, and it still doesn't matter. America started off with similar rules to that, and look where we are now. Over time, the qualifications for voting will become more and more lax. Now, we have half the country saying that people who aren't even legal citizens should be able to vote, and ID shouldn't even be required. Politicians know exactly what they're doing with all this nonsense, and because the people are sheep, they go along with it. But another way politicians do anything it takes to get votes: illegal immigration. Biden kept the border wide open. He thought he was going to make it to a second term, and he nearly made it to a second term in 2024 before he was forced out and replaced by Kamala Harris at the last minute, right in front of everybody. But Biden kept the border open so his entire party would get more votes and a larger permanent voting bloc, not just him. A politician is only concerned with 2 things: acquiring power and wielding power. They will always use their power to beget themselves more power. They will lie for it. They will pay for it. They will make shady deals for it. No matter how much you hate autocracy, one simple fact will always remain. When power is shared, when power is divided up amongst dozens or hundreds of people, there will always be a power struggle. It's not about the people. It's never about the people. The plebs will always be nothing more than tools for the powerful elite to use. Studies have already confirmed this, so there's not much to say on it. People get less intelligent when they're in groups, not more intelligent. When have you seen a crowd behave like geniuses? Even the most optimistic Democrat, lowercase d, has to admit that the democratic process makes a single wise man equal, quote unquote, to a complete moron. Because after all, they're both just one vote. You can study for 80 years with the dedication of a monk, and then once you're ready to put that wisdom and knowledge to work by voting, along comes Brian. Never worked a day in his life, high as a kite, skinny as a pole with 3 baby mamas, and he votes in the opposite direction. And just like that, the wise man's vote means nothing. He just has to hope that millions of other people put just as much dedication into their vote as he did. And what are the odds of that? Like I said, democracy assumes everybody is already equal in every way, which in a way makes it even worse than communism. No, the wise man who studied the universe for decades in solitude is not the equal of triple baby mama dumb fuck Brian. Most people are ignorant. Around half of people are just plain stupid. Doesn't everybody agree on that already? It's baffling how many people both love democracy while thinking poorly of the average person's intelligence. If nobody thinks highly of the average person's intelligence, then how do we trust everybody to know whom to give power to? Does everyone assume people suddenly become more intelligent when they're voting? No matter which way you slice it, people don't get any more rational when they're voting. If there was a vote between what's scarier, tarantulas or snakes, how would voting on it change your personal feelings towards it? No, you already have an answer, and that's how you would vote. Same thing in politics. Voting doesn't improve anyone's thinking or character. It gauges people where they're at right now. And voting is far more about feelings than knowledge, because nearly all people are lacking expertise in every political arena. True leaders already struggle being knowledgeable enough in all these areas anyway. I don't say people are ignorant just to say it. No hyperbole, no sarcasm. Knowledge just takes time and effort. Wisdom takes even more time and effort. And any wise person will agree when I say that the more wisdom you gain, the more you realize you still don't know. Everyone has varying levels of knowledge and wisdom to each other, but we are all short of having all the knowledge or all the wisdom. When it's so difficult to grow in these ways, yes, it's far easier to be ignorant and to simply base one's decisions or votes on emotion. It's easier to be ignorant than knowledgeable. It's easier to be reckless than careful. It's easier to destroy than to build. My point is, being right or doing the right thing is always more difficult than being wrong or doing the selfish, reckless thing. Like I said earlier, democracy assumes everyone is equally intelligent and equally responsible, but this couldn't be further from true. People think that they and everyone else votes on behalf of everyone. Propaganda will have you believe that people vote on behalf of everyone, but that's not how people vote. People vote for themselves and what matters to them. And nobody votes for the long term either. People vote for immediate results. People vote to get things, not to carefully plan for the future. Voting is stupid in high school, and it's stupid after high school. General elections are hardly any different than students voting to have 2 lunches and extra vending machines and getting A's on every quiz regardless of their answers. Democracy is prayer. It's prayer to people you give power to make your dreams come true. A common counter I hear to criticisms of democracy is fine. We're just not doing it right. We should replace the people currently in charge. Yeah, that's exactly what elections are for. We try to cleanse our governments every few years. In America, in Canada, in the UK, in Australia, in Germany, and it's the same result every time. Nothing improves. Politicians are still politicians no matter where you go, because democracy is still democracy wherever you go. Voting is just plain childish. It's the equivalent of putting children in charge of the household, or pretending to at least. What do you think the voting results would be if parents asked their kids to vote on whether they should eat vegetables or pizza for dinner? What do you think the voting results would be if parents asked their kids to vote if bedtime should be extended by 3 hours? Do people believe that once everyone becomes an adult, they stop being selfish in that exact same way? Or stupid? On the day we turn 18, we suddenly become super responsible and only put others first? So, how do we know how children would always vote if they could, but we think it would never apply to adults in the same way? And did you notice something about this scenario? It's the parents who offer up what's being voted on in the first place. That should teach you something right there. Because in this situation, in this scenario, the real power lies with the parents regardless of the vote. They wouldn't put something up to a vote if the vote truly mattered, if it would truly change anything. Do you think if parents gave their children a vote on anything, that they would go, well, that's not the decision we wanted, but hey, we have to honor our children's vote? So why would it be any different with adults? The vast majority of the time, it's just to give those who are ruled the illusion of choice. This isn't complicated. Rule of the majority is the opposite of consideration of the views of the minority. In order for democracy to consider the minority, the majority have to consciously decide to consider the views of the minority. It never ceases to astonish me. People see the rights and views of the minority as the greatest feature of democracy, when, by definition, it's not a feature of democracy at all. In theory, what's even the point of democracy if it doesn't include term limits? Well, if you have term limits, then you have whiplash. No matter what policy one administration implements, the next administration can come along in a couple years and reverse it. A law comes into being, then it's changed again, then it's changed again. Maybe it's abolished. But the point is, there's no consistency here. You're always at the mercy of the current administration, and if you enjoy the current law, then you best enjoy it while you can. Sometimes a president's decision is permanent, such as pardons, and even pardons can be a form of whiplash. No matter what opinion you have about the J6 people being locked up, we had to hear about them and their situation for years, only for Trump to pardon them immediately upon entering office. That is also a form of whiplash. Political whiplash has got to have some sort of psychological effect on the population, I'm sure of it. In a democracy in the West currently, there are no leaders, only politicians. We are ruled by opportunists and liars by design. There's no virtue in being a politician. The people cannot get any spiritual guidance from politicians. The entire system ensures that only the most corruptible people acquire power, which by extension means the least qualified people for spiritual leadership. And I'm not just talking about religion here. I'm talking about the sense of hope itself. Politicians are not leaders. They are wielders of power, and they deserve no description better than that. You see, a monarch has visible power. Everyone has their eyes on him, which also means everyone is looking up to him. With a king, imagine the way people look up to our presidents, but instead, a king isn't beholden to the whims of politicians, which means everything truly is on him. Knowing exactly who to blame and who to thank also has a third implication: knowing who to put your hope in. A monarch, using the literal definition of monarch, doesn't belong to a political party, so he doesn't get to use scapegoats the way fascist and communist dictators get to. The king is the government. It doesn't get more distilled than that. When the king gives a speech, the people have hope. When the king walks among the people have hope. In a democracy, the people may or may not have their bellies full, but one thing is for sure: they are always spiritually hungry. No matter what you think of monarchy, there's one thing you can't deny about it. They're not atheistic very often, are they? If everyone was honest with each other, we would all admit that we want a king. One man to just come in and do all of the things. That's what they wanted Trump to do, after all. And for at least the first few days of his second term, he acted like a king. And those who voted for him loved it. Biden did something similar 4 years earlier, and his voters loved it too. The best form of government is a benevolent dictator, as they say. That's why monarchy is the natural order of things with humans. But another problem with democracy is that it's not just one person who's the government. Unlike a king, whose government is simply there to enforce his will, in a democracy, you have hundreds of politicians whose will must be enforced, and thus, those hundreds of politicians also need slews of their own enforcers. Democracy is inherently bloated government. Thus, what inevitably follows with a bloated government is bloated taxes. The government has far more things to pay for, after all. And I've already explained what those things are in 2 previous videos, so I won't go through it again here. Just watch those videos if you want the full list of things that bloated governments need to pay for, and that's why your taxes are so high. If you're not a Christian, you should be, but apart from that fact, you can just skip this part. My fellow Christians, the 2 things you should believe most is the Word of God and what we learn from His creation, which is the manifestation of His power. Guess what? Both the Bible and nature demonstrate beyond any doubt that God is a monarchist. He favors hierarchy, not egalitarianism. If you're a conservative who loves democracy for some reason, ask yourself why you hate communism, but you love democracy. I guarantee if you think about it for just 5 minutes, you will realize you don't make sense. Monarchy is the most natural system, and it frequently outlasts democracies. Most importantly, democracy is never advocated anywhere in the Bible, while monarchy is all over the Bible. Monarchy is how God runs heaven. And in multiple places in the Bible, it explains that God wants the earth to be run the same as heaven. My favorite example of which is found in the Lord's Prayer. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And if Christians even get tempted to say that democracy hadn't been invented yet when the Bible was written, well, first of all, how dare you? Our Lord is beyond time. And secondly, democracy most certainly did exist already. And not just in places like Greece, but it had existed in Rome and Roman territory not even 50 years before Christ's birth. The Roman Empire began shortly before Mary conceived Jesus, and the Roman Republic lasted a record to this day, 483 years before that. Democracy existed plenty before the books of the Bible were finished. It's advocated nowhere in Scripture because our God is not an egalitarian God. And one final point on this, I've heard a lot of Christians that I've spoken with about politics say the following. They say, I will never bow to a king. I will never be the subject of a king. And I just think, you're already submissive to a slew of politicians. Why would one person with power be so much worse than many people with power? Try to make that make sense, please. Eventually, people won't be interested in coexistence anymore. The nature of democracy is that everyone has a voice, everyone has a say. That sounds great, as long as you don't think about the natural outcome of that. What happens when everyone's opinion is given legitimacy? They end up disagreeing more. This is the reason it's utter nonsense when conservatives say that the answer to bad speech is more speech, which, as Spoon says, and I'll just quote him here,
the argument that the best way to combat bad speech is better speech is like saying the antidote to fat people is better food. It shows a fundamental misunderstanding of why they eat the bad food. They don't want the better food, they want the unhealthy food because it makes them feel better.
Human beings are not logical creatures. Human beings prefer to believe what they like to believe, whether it's true or not. Disagreement doesn't make people agree more. I don't know how to put it more simply than that. Democracy is supposed to be a system of compromise between disagreeing parties, but all it ends up doing is amplifying the disagreement. So, people break off into their own groups more than they were before, and they become less and less interested in coexistence. If you believe abortion is murder, why would you want to compromise with people who want more abortion? If you think your group, whatever group that is persecuted in your own country, why would you want to compromise with the people doing the persecuting? Whether one group is justified or not, groups don't want compromise, they want their way. Period. Democracy always exists on borrowed time. It can never stand the test of time organically. Democracy always chips away at the foundation that allowed it to stand in the first place. How long democracy lasts completely depends on the strength of the foundation that came before it, the main one being unity itself. When you have illegals, or people who should be illegal, voting, you are giving your enemies power. Just because someone from outside of your country wants to live in your country, that doesn't mean they care one iota about you. It doesn't mean they have the best intentions for you. Hell, that's not even guaranteed with people who actually belong in your country. But this isn't about illegals and immigrants. I'll talk about that later. Let's shift to people who have every right to live in your country, are of the same blood as you and everything. They can still be your enemy. People who want your money, who want your property, who want you to lose your freedom for any of an infinite number of reasons. People who want you and the group you belong to become extinct. Even if you're one of those people who thinks everybody is good deep down, Well, I'm sure you're not happy that so many Hispanics and women voted for Trump, are you? So, no matter how ignorant you are, you still have to realize that voting gives power to people who don't like you. And why would you want to do that? And even worse is the fact that voting is power taken from you and given to your enemies. Remember that kings don't belong to a political party. They represent the entire nation. And when a king holds all the power that is not taken from you, and that is power most likely used for you. You have far better odds with a king than you do trusting your power in the hands of people who want to hurt you, or at the very least, just don't want to coexist with you. Anyone who is honest with themselves will admit that they are not an expert on most political things. Some people are not an expert on anything. In fact, it might be impossible to be an expert on everything. Even as staunch of a monarchist as I am, you'll never hear me claim that kings always, or ever, are experts on everything. But kings do have expert advisors, and you don't. You don't consult any kind of counsel before you cast your vote. And even if you did, there are still tens of millions of people who don't. Most people just believe whatever they believe, and then cast their vote. It's impossible to gauge a voter's expertise, education, or intentions before they cast a vote. No matter who the candidates are, every election is guaranteed to be a vote of ignorance, even if it could somehow be measured that all the candidates who won were the best ones. With democracy, the absolute best you can hope for is that the ignorant masses get lucky choosing the right candidate. But nearly all the time, that isn't the case. And besides, the candidates themselves are terrible people, because politicians are terrible people. No matter how much you like a politician, you always have to find it suspicious that they know how to win a popularity contest. Politicians are not honorable enough to rule, and the people are not qualified to choose their leaders. That is simple reality. Sheep cannot be their own shepherds. Yes, humans always have and always will disagree, but having a system intentionally built on disagreement makes failure inevitable. At the end of the day, someone has to make a decision, and someone will always disagree with that decision. Those two things will always be true. So, what is the point of democracy in the first place? Given what I just said, do you now see what democracy is truly meant for? It's meant to keep the people pacified. It's meant to make people shut up and stop fussing. Just wait until the next election. It keeps the plebs out of the hairs of the elites, so the elites can do whatever they want and get away with it. Why else do you think we'll never get the Epstein list? And I literally mean never. Without a king, there is no one to keep the elites in check. The elites tell plebs like us to just wait for the next election, and then when the next election comes, the politicians that won do nothing to change anything. And then you're told to wait for the next election again. On and on it goes into eternity until the system implodes. If a nation isn't conquered or destroyed by other means, then democracy will buckle under its own bloated weight. Democracy never lasts, and its end is never peaceful. Whether you vote Democrat or Republican, or if you're in the UK, Conservative or Labour, how has voting for either party improved anything? The closest that I've ever seen a president or a prime minister do to improve things is to just whiplash what the last guy did. That's it. Even if every president whiplashed every bad decision of the last guy, you'd only have entirely whiplash policies. The laws of your country would be extremely unstable themselves. That would be even worse than what I described in the whiplash section. It would be replacing one problem with a problem that's just as bad. But I'm not here to talk about whiplash again. You can't have every problem be solved by just waiting for the next election when your government is run by politicians. Just wait for the next election may as well be said like, just let corruption get away with it for now. Just don't think about the bad policies for a couple of years. No matter what you think of kings, they don't need to come up with new laws all the damn time like a bloated democratic, bureaucratic apparatus has to. When order doesn't come from a leader, it comes from pieces of paper. So of course they have to add more pieces of paper over time. Just wait for the next election exemplifies one of the main problems with democracy. It's meant to pacify you. It's meant to make you shut up and just accept whatever those in power are doing. And that dream of problems getting fixed in the next election rarely happens anyway. Take Trump, for example. His main campaign promise was heavy deportations, but his deportation numbers are actually worse than Joe Biden's. Worse. Does anyone believe Trump is going to reverse no-fault divorce? Or give us the Epstein list? No, not even Trump is the leader we need. We're barely half a year into Trump's second term, and there's already an extensive list of fell for it again. Elections don't cleanse the government. Elections don't change anything. If I have to tell you it's a bad idea to wait around for a bunch of politicians to do the right thing, if you don't already know that's a bad idea, then there's no hope for you anyway. Frankly, if you needed a video explaining why democracy is shit, what the hell is wrong with you? Everyone agrees that politicians are dishonest, ill-meaning, embarrassing excuses for leaders. Everyone already agrees that political parties are inherently divisive. Everyone already agrees that the US Constitution gets ignored all the time and no one gets punished for ignoring it. Everyone knows this system doesn't make people see past their differences, but rather intensifies our dislike for each other. Did democracy give us the Epstein list? When was the last time democracy put any corrupt politician behind bars? Has democracy lowered your taxes? What was the point of this system? Seriously, try to answer this question without regurgitating propaganda you're supposed to say. Be honest with yourself. You already hate democracy. You hate everything about democracy except the thought of it. In every way democracy is implemented and practiced, it does nothing you want it to do. Sometimes even the complete opposite of what you want it to do. And when it collapses, and it will, are you going to say, well, that wasn't real democracy? You shouldn't say that after you've watched this video and heard all the reasons democracy itself will never work. It's not that we did it wrong in America or the UK or just name a country. It's that democracy itself doesn't work. It contradicts logic, practicality, and human nature. But even more importantly, it contradicts history, which leads me to the final point of this video. No matter how much you love it, for whatever inexplicable reason, it is plain simple fact that democracy never lasts. The all-time record lifespan for a democracy was the Roman Republic, and even that failed to make it to its 500-year anniversary. The average lifespan of a democracy is between 200 to 250 years, which means the West is just about due for collapse. It doesn't matter if you or I understand why democracy never lasts. What matters is that it never lasts. That is a fact of history. If this list isn't enough to explain to you why it never lasts, then you are truly unqualified to have any political opinions whatsoever. Reality doesn't care about your ideology. Every utopian ideology fails. Every utopian ideology brings the opposite. They bring dystopia. Communism is utopian, fascism is utopian, and democracy is utopian. Every time human beings think they can replace God's natural order, disaster follows. The world, until God fixes it, will never be a perfect place. If we can't create perfect, then we must strive for what's best, and that's not democracy. Listen closely if you somehow still have faith in democracy after watching this video. No matter how much you love democracy, it's failing us in real time. Not just in America, but across the entire West. It's failing to a degree that no single politician or administration can fix. Nearly all families are broken now. The birth rate is collapsing. Mental illness is through the roof, and people don't even know why they're even bothering to try. Men and women don't even want to date each other anymore. Nobody wants to have kids anymore. Anyone who believes this mess is sustainable is a fool. Anyone who thinks all we need to do is rewind the clock back 30 years and that will somehow prevent this exact mess from happening again is a fool. This can't go on forever. This entire system is going to implode within our lifetimes. I guarantee that. I'd be very surprised if we last just 10 more years. If you want a real leader to emerge, a real leader that you want to follow, you have to choose one. But not with your vote. Choose them personally. Don't select one from options that a piece of paper gives you, a piece of paper given to you by the government. Choose a leader you know. A local leader, preferably. Someone who's never run for office. Someone who never tried to win a popularity contest. Someone who never even thought about having that kind of power. That's the kind of man you want in charge. That is a king. And if you can't find that leader, do your best to become that. Forget about elections. Simply choose someone you believe in and follow them. Plain and simple. That's the solution to our problems. It's going to scare our corrupt government and media and elites. It's going to scare them shitless. And you can bet they're going to crank up the authoritarianism and the propaganda to keep you from doing this. They demand that you follow the people from the list of options they give you, not from your own personal list of options. Do you see now how they gave you the illusion of choice? Yeah, you always got to choose your politician, but only from a list they made. They don't truly want the people to have their own choice of leader. It'll scare them shitless. But it's the best option we've got. Because this system has failed us. And there's no reversing that. There's no fixing this. There's no fixing this without changing the system itself. Fixing symptoms is no longer good enough. It never really was. I would rather not live to see all of this implode completely. I don't want to have to rebuild from the ashes. I'd rather change course before we drive over a cliff.